Now, the United States has offered to pay an unspecified sum as compensation to relatives of the 10 people in Afghanistan, including 7 children of one family who were killed by the Americans in a drone strike, which later the Americans admitted was a mistake. Now, this incident happened virtually in the last days when the Americans were beating a pretty hasty retreat from Afghanistan. The U.S. Defense Department has said that it has made a commitment that includes offering ex gratia condolence payments in addition to working with the U.S. State Department in support of the family members who were interested in relocation to the United States. U.S. General Frank McKenzie, Commander U.S. Central Command, has also admitted that 7 children had been killed in this drone strike and that the vehicle that they targeted did not have any connection whatsoever with the so-called Islamic State terror group. Earlier, he also offered his apologies to the families of the victims.
Good afternoon. I'm here to brief the results of the investigation I directed following the report of civilian casualties from our strike in Kabul on 29 August. Having thoroughly reviewed the findings of the investigation and the supporting analysis by interagency partners, I am now convinced that as many as 10 civilians, including up to 7 children, were tragically killed in that strike. Moreover, we now assess that it is unlikely that the vehicle and those who died were associated with ISIS-K or were a direct threat to U.S. forces. I offer my profound condolences to the family and friends of those who were killed.
The aid worker Esmira Ahmadi was the one who was killed in this drone strike by the Americans. This strike also resulted in deaths of 7 children, all of a family. Initially, the Americans insisted that the target that they had taken out belonged to the so-called ISIS group. The strike took place on the 29th of August, but eventually the Americans were compelled to admit that they had in fact killed 10 innocent civilians as a part of this drone strike. Now, the Americans also claimed that they had been tracking the white Toyota for about 8 hours before targeting the car with a missile that resulted in the killings of 7 children and 3 adults, including Ahmadi. The U.S. Central Command claims that the vehicle had been spotted at a site in Kabul that had been identified as the location from which the so-called Islamic State operatives were believed to be preparing for attacks at the Kabul airport. The intelligence failure also raised some pretty hard questions about the future risks, particularly whether the United States can in fact even keep track of threats from Afghanistan without a presence in the country. Last month, the relatives of the people who were killed in the attack demanded for compensation and also for a face-to-face apology by the Americans. Lloyd Austin apologized for the botched attack. However, Ahmadi's 22-year-old nephew, Farshad Haidari, has said that that is simply not enough because there needs to be accountability on the part of the Americans for having killed 10 innocent civilians. The botched U.S. drone strike came just days after the deadly ISIS twin bombings that took place at the international Kabul airport. Nearly 200 people had been killed in that suicide bombing, including about 13 American troops, besides almost about 187 Afghan nationals.